Welcome to the Mechanical PE Exam Prep Podcast, the podcast where I give mechanical engineers like you the tools and motivation to get your professional engineering license and take your career to the next level. In this episode, I sit down with Mo, a determined engineer who recently passed the PE exam, to uncover his journey from studying in Egypt to working in Dubai and ultimately earning his PE license in the US. Mo shares his unique study strategies, how he balanced exam prep with a full-time job and family, and the mindset shifts that helped him succeed. We dive into the challenges of mastering unit conversions, developing effective study habits, and navigating the unexpected hurdles of exam day. Whether you're preparing for the PE or looking for motivation to tackle big goals, Mo's insights will leave you inspired and ready to take the next step in your engineering career. Mo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
To start out, I'd love to just hear a little bit about your background, educationally, professionally. What led you to wanting to get your PE?
All right, great. So educationally, I went to school in Egypt, Cairo University. I had my bachelor and master's degree in mechanical engineering from Cairo University in Egypt. Then I started my career as a junior design engineer in one of the engineering firm in Egypt as well. After that, I developed my career in Dubai, joining first contracting company, working as a mechanical engineer. Then after that, I went to manufacturing, working with one of the HVAC equipment manufacturers, basically for oil and gas field equipment, which was very good and challenging job for me. My role there was application and sales engineer. So I was doing engineering, putting technical offers together, and also on commercial side, like quotes, doing the coding and sometimes the bidding for the project as well. And then I decided to go back to my original area, which is the design. So I went back to work as a mechanical engineer in one of the engineering firms in Dubai. Then I moved to another firm. The first engineering firm I was working as a mechanical engineer and was mainly focused on infrastructure, master planning. Basically, I was engaged more in the mechanical system, HVAC systems, fire protection systems, and water systems for districts, let's say. And then when I moved to the second engineering firm, I was more focused into high-rise buildings. There's a little bit differences between both applications, but these are the systems that I was working on and being designing. And then I moved to the US with my family. First, I started working with the giant companies such as Amazon. My role there was really in engineering role as much as was like more towards operational, but that helped me get exposed to how these giant companies run and how the operational part of things being achieved and being accomplished. Yeah,
It's good experience to balance out the
yes,
design stuff. Were you working
yeah.
in Amazon's offices or data centers or?
I was working on their fulfillment facilities, so basically
Ah,
part of the operation team. So I was watching all the the label and procedure and the packaging procedure, sorting procedure, all that. It's incredibly how it is organized and being utilized. All the systems, the conveyance systems, and also I was very engaged with the robot floor. The robot system, it's designed to, and maybe you watched some video on YouTube on that. I'm pretty sure you did. But the items are stored in very large area where the robots know exactly where they are, and they just go and pick up the box or the container of this and bring it back. So I was working
wow.
also slightly with the robots, and that's also exposed me to some of the robotics elements of things.
Hmm. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Coming from,
Yeah.
doing HVAC and high level
Hmm.
infrastructure planning and high rises and districts, all the way to working in some of the highest tech facilities, in terms of warehousing and distribution for Amazon. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it is. It is, and I learned a lot in Amazon. Amazon, it's also a culture, so that's also a way of thinking of things, critical problem solving. Just by seeing and get exposed to that, that teach me a lot. That taught me a lot.
Cool. And is that where you are now or?
No, then after that, during this time, I was working on my EIT. So I was studying while I'm working, making sure that I will get the right score and pass the exam so I can continue my engineering career. As much as I learned from Amazon, but I was well aware that I need to go back to my career because this is where I think I can be successful. This is where I can be productive because this is what I know. This is what this is what where I invest my time and money from before. So
Right.
I just felt the need to go back to engineering as soon as possible. I was studying at this time. I passed my EIT from the first time, which was great. Then I started looking for a new job. So I applied for an engineering intern in one of the food manufacturing companies. I was on the outskirts of the mechanical engineering at this point, more leaning towards industrial, which was good. Yes, I had a experience before with manufacturing, but I was on the sales application side. But
Mm.
now I'm exposed to the manufacturing processing. The approach there is different, and that's why I've been in contact with you on the going back to the industrial PE, seeing how well I can do with that and how can I get prepared for that because I already had this experience. The good thing I learned there was the different engineering approach. In mechanical engineering, we're very physical, analytical with things. However, on industry, it's slightly different. It's more statistical. It's more
Dealing with large numbers and small
yeah.
percentages of errors and things like that.
Yes, yes, yes. So that was what was very interesting to me because I found it very important to adapt very quickly with the new environment. So I started working with the group of the intern on how to develop some of the softwares that helped us to analyze these data faster and easier, get insights because the company where I got my engineering intern in, we adapted the philosophy of data decision or data directed decisions, DDDs basically. So we need data in order to take right decisions, and we're able to do that actually during the intern. We had a fantastic internship with a lot of projects. I was working at least on 3 or 4 projects during 6 months. So
Hmm.
which is really, really good. The project that was assigned to me, we were able to develop this software that helps a lot to absorb all this data and bring good insights in no time. And then when I found a little bit of a time left, I started trying to get more engaged with other projects going on, and that was very helpful and very insightful. I think at the end of the intern, there was a good conclusion from both sides, on my side and their side, that a permanent hire might be a good opportunity at this point. So I went ahead and took the job. I worked first in a supportive role for the operation, doing pretty much closer to what I was doing during the intern, trying to develop softwares to help shorten the time of the process because at this time things were taking a little longer to get completed. In my position, I tried to basically I was tracking materials, but also to have all these data inputs and taking the insights in shorter time in order to take a right decision. What material need to be purchased and what material need to be delayed or being expedited.
Hmm.
All these decisions were in the material tracking field. So I was more towards
Wow.
that.
Sounds like very complex and kind of figuring out a lot of moving pieces and which one is the
Mhm.
limiting factor. And even once you speed that up, now what's the new limiting factor? And it's
Yes.
probably an endless opportunity there. But
Yeah, yeah,
also
yeah.
you're playing for smaller and smaller improvements as you get
Yes.
better. So
Yes, yes, that's true. It was very interesting also because I got exposure to other things like I had never exposed to it before, like the software of these tracking materials is it was something very different to me. I think of course maybe you heard about it. It's called SAP. I never had an experience with this software before, but I had
it does
to.
everything, right?
It has like the supply chain. It's mainly for supply chain applications, and I have also to adapt very quickly to that. I got some training, of course, but again, I was trying to see what I can do to utilize it and leverage my knowledge and my skills to the point where I can be effective with the software and I can use it effectively. I think in a few months, I think maybe I did a great job. So I got a raise and a different position as a process engineer. I started working more with the processing element of things. Food is one of the most complex thing in the world. It's basically unpredictable because we're in typical engineering application. We're dealing with air, water, things that has properties, fixed properties, and we can't expect their behavior. Food is not. Food is completely different. It's an organic thing. So the viscosity of the product change based on the raw material, and the raw material changes on based on the fields, the maybe the breed or the type of the they call it variety basically. So based on the variety of the fruit or the grain or whatever the food element is. So it's always there. And what also I noticed, there is a very limited sources for engineering textbooks, engineering approaches for food manufacturing, which is also challenging. So I was trying to depend on all the appendices and at the end of the MERB, trying to get
Oh
all
yeah.
this viscosity, material properties, and food properties. There's a lot there, but I think also there's a lot missing. And just because it's not very popular, maybe. So, and also food, one of the things that every manufacturer like to keep their trade because this is what they make them their sales
It's
and
their
maybe
intellectual property in a way,
yes, exactly,
which is
yeah.
kind of scary when you think about food, though, right? Like, it shouldn't really be IP. It should be like what's in. That's interesting. So there's all kinds of different properties of foods. I hadn't thought about that, but it makes sense.
That's what I found very interesting and very challenging at the same time.
And then what?
Then after that, I worked on the processing side of things for a few months. Then one of the capital projects for energy and water was going to be implemented, so I had the chance also to work on that. It was great. It's a different process. It's basically it's a heat exchanger, but it has this new technology and the flow inside the heat exchanger being set into a hyper position when it increases the efficiency of the heat transfer tremendously. So that one of the things that I was able to work on, it saves a lot of energy and water by just adjusting the process. The capital was a big amount. I think it was about like $25 million. But the savings, it will pay back itself in about like 4 years, 4 to 5
So
years.
the company was developing a new, more efficient heat exchanger to do some process.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Huh. And they were investing a lot of money into bringing that on board.
Yes, exactly.
I guess when you do things at scale, improving that efficiency is going to make a big difference.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Also, the company, they were generating their own steam to use it in their processing. So they have these boilers and all the associated elements to have the steam generator and steam network. The steam was basically consumed. Basically, after putting the steam into a process, you have to discharge it to the environment on a lower exergy, basically. But with this new equipment, what happened is the idea is to recapture that
Hmm.
steam and reuse it,
Yeah.
which is makes a lot of sense and also a lot of saving, because instead of just keep generating steam and discharge it to the atmosphere, now you have the opportunity to collect that and reuse some of the heat in it, use it to a different process.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to have a
Yeah.
closed loop instead of an open loop. Makes me
Yeah.
think about Con Edison when they first started using steam. Steam was a
Hmm.
waste product. There's extra heat from generating power.
Yeah.
So they would send steam out to the city
Hmm.
and people use it for heat, and it was a good deal for everyone. And then eventually there was such a high demand for steam
Hmm.
that they have to make steam now.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
it's once through system. There's no closed loop. It's not coming back. So
Hmm.
if you're a consumer of that, like a commercial building, then you're getting that steam, you're using it for heat, and
Hmm.
then you have to capture that condensate. And in some cases, you have to add cold water to cool it down before you're allowed to discharge it back to the city. So anything you can do to capture that heat, if you can do some hot water reheat or
Hmm.
some kind of regeneration just to get
Yes.
your hot water up to temp, then at least you're capturing that energy before you just dump it back out into the
Right.
sewer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like how in your story you're kind of finding your way back to your engineering
Hmm.
as you kind of change from one position and one project to the next.
It's very interesting to me. I find myself like I was lucky, and also at the same time I was motivated by one thing. I just want to go back to in mechanical engineering, the core where what I learned, what I've been doing, and this is what motivated me to do the EIT and the PE afterwards. Because after my EIT, you maybe know that very well. I was communicating you even before I passed my EIT. Like within a month after my PIT, I passed like in I think I passed in October, and I already enrolled in your program in November already. So I was very focused on getting my PE exam completed and see what I can do with the license. So that's what keeps me on track, and I appreciate all the support and all the guidance I've been received from you, Dan. You cannot imagine how supportive you were to me, and how motivated you for you to me you for me. So you're the tremendous support I received from you and others, a few others, not very many. That was my motive. That was my motivation to take the next step and trying to get back to my career and to be successful as a person, as an engineer as well.
Well, I tip my cap to you. You had the
Oh,
clarity
thank
and the
you.
drive to make it happen. You knew what you wanted to do.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
what were your thoughts about the PE, the exam? Did you have any preconceived notions before you actually started to study about what it would take, what would be involved, how hard it would be? What was going through your head before you kind of dove in?
Okay, so I have some pre-ideas. I think I didn't have too many of them before the AIT. The AIT were more like this is the first step I have to take it right in order to get the the next steps complete. So during my preparation to EIT, I was looking also to what I'm going to do after that and with the P. I had a few conversations with other colleagues and friends, what they were mentioning, and I'm not sure if that basically on their personal experience or some other experience. I'm not sure, but they were all towards PE is different. PE is a little complicated than the EIT. EIT can be more like straightforward and can be also can be passed. I think the person he find it challenging to pass his PE, and but that just put me into a very different mode, knowing that it's challenging and knowing also I have to complete it, I have to get it right. Makes me determined, but also very cautious while I'm dealing with the PE study material. Also, one of the EIT easiest part was that I'm dealing with SIU, which is I'm used to basically
Right.
on my previous study, but also with the PE now I have to be a jack of all trades with doing the US customer units and also the SI units. So it took me like a few months, I'm not gonna lie, to in the beginning just to get very familiar going back and forth between units with ease. I try to master that before doing anything else. So that was my main focus in the very first a few months. Try to master the units, how to go with ease. I know there might be a level when you can go between units normally or with no complication, but I wanted to have it as a flowing thing, a very
Right.
smooth process. So that's what took me a little bit in the beginning. And then when I felt confident with doing that, then I moved forward to the study material. The other thing that I found challenging in the PE than the EIT, that it was surprising the depth of the material in each topic and how deep it is. I like to get into the deep of the idea before I move forward.
Hmm.
But by doing that with every topic, what I found challenging is that I had to revisit the previous topics frequently because if I dive into every topic, probably I will start forgetting the previous topics. So there was this delicate balance between the moving forward and revisiting all the previous material as well.
Right.
So that
Couple of great insights there. The units
oh,
and
thank
building
you.
your foundation and the delicate balance. I think you put that well between continuing to move forward and going deeply into topics, but also not losing sight of the stuff that you've already done, making sure that you're remaining fresh and clear on that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how did you formulate your plans from a timeline perspective? Did you think about, I'm going to do, how did you achieve that balance? And did you map that against the calendar, or did you just kind of start and say, I'll know when I'm ready? Or what was your approach there?
My approach was first is to enroll into one of the programs like dance program. This is the first step. I have to get the material. I have to get myself into all the preparation. Basically, I need material, I need program, I need people give me advice and support and insights. So that's one thing. And then I start putting my schedule into, and that wasn't like merely a personal choice. It was has other factors and circumstances as well. So I end up with two schedules, one long term schedule and one short-term schedule. The long-term schedule was about like 3 years, which is because the whole thing, the study and the going to my exam day about 4 years. But the 3 year period where we're all mastering the unit, getting study routine, trying to also see the application in my workplace while I'm studying.
And was there an experience component in there too? You were thinking, I've got to accumulate some years.
Oh, not necessarily. I was more focused on passing my PE
Okay.
than accumulating experience because also in food manufacturing, I don't think there was a lot of PE in my organization. Maybe on the chemical engineering side of things, but not on the mechanical engineering necessarily. But that was more because of my personal circumstances. I was a married guy with 2 kids. Yeah, a lot of other personal circumstances around me. But I try to focus on the basics and I try to master what I can master during this time period, gain ground. I try to, even with the smallest things, I've tried to solve a problem or two per day. I
Hmm.
was spending an hour or sometimes half an hour just just to keep myself connected to the material and just not to lose track. It was
Right.
tedious, but it was very important for what's coming after because after this 3 years, I had change in my personal circumstances, and that allowed me to have an extended amount of hours of study.
Hmm.
So I was able to spend 6, 7 hours a day just studying. That was compressed, condensed, a 1 year study with tooth and nails on things. It was like very focused on it.
So you threw out the slow schedule and brought in a faster schedule at that point.
Exact, but all the work I spent on the long schedule paid off during the short time schedule because I needed all these foundations that I've been building for the last a few years, all the unit conversions, all the deep understanding of the engineering concepts, all the like key elements to solve problems. However, the short time period was to mastering the vast exam passing techniques, basically, like what you need to solve and when, time management, all the other good stuff on how to make all effective in the exam day. So I was trying in the short time period, I was more focused on exam passing techniques.
Kind of putting it all together, all that
Yes,
foundational
exactly.
knowledge and skills. What was the hardest part? What was the most challenging part of studying for the PE exam in your opinion?
As you always mention, Dan, I would just want to thank you again for that because this is one of the greatest advice I received from you is to use the holistic approach for preparing yourself to the PE exam, psychologically, fitness wise, sleep, routine, all that. That was one of the greatest things and the most challenging thing sometimes is to keep that uniformity, your study schedule with your taking care of your health, your sleep, your psychological well as well. So all that was really important. They are all important elements to get prepared to the exam day.
And it's hard to keep track of all of that because it makes
Exactly.
it feel like you just have even more to do and it's already
Yeah.
hard enough to study.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a firm believer in that because if you take care of all those things, then it gives you more energy and it kind of allows you to keep going. So, oh, that's great. Well, is there anything else that surprised you as you were going through that you didn't expect at the outset, either with the study program or with your process? Or were there any moments that stood out to you as like where, or is it just kind of this very gradual process for you?
Okay. I will say for the study and the expectation of the content, high level, no surprises, but on the topic level, the depth of the material is tremendous. I mean, it's amazing how all these information packed in the MERM and in your material and in all that. So it's a huge resource. It's just how challenging sometimes is to what you need to focus on and what you need to just have a general idea about.
Right.
The differentiation is really important.
Yeah, and that's a hard part to teach too, because like you can synthesize information at an incredible depth in any one topic. I'll just give an example, like from my past life, I worked with acoustical engineers that would
Okay.
come in, they would gather data about what was happening in a room, and then they would provide like speakers that would absorb certain sounds, cancel out certain sounds, make it easier to hear the right things, but not hear everything,
Mhm.
right? So these are experts at that topic. Now, as mechanical engineers, we're asked to know a bit about acoustical, right? And there might be one or two questions on the PE exam. People always ask me about supporting topics and how much emphasis are they going to be on these supporting topics. But you could do a whole career on acoustical engineering.
Yeah.
So how do we kind of find the right level of depth to go into where we know enough to answer some basic questions. We understand that if we're putting a fan or a pump in a room, that's going to have an impact on the surrounding area,
Yeah.
but not go overboard and spend so much time becoming an expert on one thing to the exclusion of these other really important topics that there's going to be 5, 10, 12, 15 problems on the exam that are going to cover psychrometrics, right? Like there's certain areas that we need to leave no stone unturned and others where we can kind of do a light touch. So that's a bit of an art, and it's always a bit uncomfortable to tell people to study less in certain areas because sometimes you don't know who your audience is too. Like if I tell some people to study less, they hear that as not at all. And others, they're like, well, I'm not comfortable with less, so they want to do more. And then that can consume a lot of time. So yeah, it's hard to get across the exact level. And some of these things are not precise, right? You have to take some chances. And also not everybody's exam is the same. Not everybody will have the same distribution of question types. Do you remember what your experience was like on the exam day in terms of what you saw? Was it in your wheelhouse and you were like, okay, I know how to do this, and you're running through? Or was it like, were there any things that kind of threw you back and made you worry that it wasn't going your way?
It's a great on the exam day. I think on the technical side of things, I was confident, and exam was not very unexpected. I will say it was like within the good, challenging, but not very like difficult and very strange level. So that was one good thing that makes me feel good. The other thing, I got two surprises in the exam day. So the first thing, during my mastering exam technique strategies, I used to use the reference handbook, the 9.1, and I think a month before my exam, they changed that reference to 10.1. So it was a little bit difference in there. The other thing is I used to use the page number to look for basic stuff like steam tables. So I know a steam table page 230. So I used that page number, and when I opened it, it did not open the right page.
It's a few pages earlier or later, right?
Yes. So that was one of the surprises. And also, I think in the exam, the review software that helps you with the textbook or the reference handbook, and they don't have the search by page. It's more organized in the title, like in the subject and subsubject. So I think I have to go through the subject and pick from the sub-subject. So that was a little bit different. I didn't panic. It took me a minute to get this adjustment because I'm very familiar with the reference handbook. So
I know the steam table's in there. You just gotta find it.
Exactly. But it's just the few seconds that I've been saving like with every search in a steam table. Now it's a little bit challenging to save. But it wasn't anything like crazy.
No, it's a good point though, just for anyone listening, right? If you're finding your way around the reference handbook, try to memorize search phrases instead of page numbers, so that if they change the revision, you'll run into the same issue.
It's true. And the other thing was, and this is I was very aware of during my EIT, but I just completely forgot about it in the PE. That's the time is self-organized. So it's 8-hour exam, but it's not equally divided 4 and 4. I was able to be very comfortable with my first part within, I will say, like 3 hours. So it wasn't like I can like review and check like in 30 minutes and save the rest of the time for the next session. But I didn't do that. I just spent the whole 4 hours, and
you just sat there for the full 4 hours.
And then when I noticed that it's past 4 and started counting like 4 hours and 1 minute, 4 hours and 2 minutes, I realized what I have done, and I stopped the session right away. Went to my lunch break. I went back willing to have enough time for the second part because I wasn't able to save any from the first part. So that was a little bit of a hesitation there and a little bit of a panic, but I just kept my calm, I kept my confidence, and I went back, and it wasn't that bad. Yeah, it was maybe the 30 minutes I was saving. I was going to save in the first session will help me to relax more, but I was able to get it all completed. I solved all the problems, but maybe I was a little bit tight on time this time.
More than anything, it probably just impacted your psychology a bit, although it sounds like you were rolling, because I think a lot of folks, 3 hours on the first half is very, very strong, right? I think a lot of candidates will use the whole 4 hours, even ones that are fairly well prepared, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some folks may like to use a little bit more time in the morning. So there's nothing wrong with going 4.5 hours for a lot of people. So if you were 3 hours and you just needed maybe another 30 to kind of check, you were in very good shape at that point. So I'm glad that it didn't rattle your confidence, because you were definitely tracking in a good direction at that point. That's a good thing for people to hear and remember, though, because I think that definitely does come up where people don't realize that it's not split half. And also just for your sort of managing your energy, if you can reclaim half an hour in the morning, go have lunch, come back, and you're refreshed. And yeah, it helps that you have a little bit extra time, but it also helps to not sit there for 30 minutes more than necessary.
Yes.
And same thing at the end. If you're done and you're nothing else to check and you're 7.5 hours into this thing, hand it in and leave, right? There's nothing else to do. There's no reason to sit there and stare at the screen. Cool. So, and then you felt pretty good walking out of there. You got your results.
When I walked out of my PE exam, I felt relieved, because this is a day that I've been preparing like for almost 4 hours, for 4 years, and
Wow.
it was a big of a relief. I was confident of my answer. I will say like there was one problem or two where I had like the challenging, and I find it like difficult to understand which route I need to go, but the rest were within my knowledge and my information and background.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what's been the impact for you professionally since? Has anything changed since you
Oh
became a
yeah,
PE?
I actually submitted my application to Board of California. I'm working on that right now. Yeah, but as feeling that I already passed my PE, it's just giving me a huge confidence on my knowledge and my career. And also, it's a great milestone, and I think for any engineer, passing the PE exam, it's very important. I'm working on getting myself licensed from state of California, and on the work and career. So work, I shared this information with the all good people like you, Dan, and other at work. I informed them that I passed my PE. I got a bonus. Nice, that was nice. And yeah, I'm just taking my steps towards my next goal.
Awesome. Congratulations. It's great to have that
Thank
time
you.
back too, I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just in closing here, is there any last piece of advice that you would give candidates that are going for their mechanical PE from your experience?
Of course, so it's a very important thing, and it's a huge milestone in each engineer career and personal as a person as well. It's a very important milestone, and you just the determination, I think, and the put that as a goal is very important, because it's easy to lose track on things, and also to delay things for longer and longer time. Sometimes you have to schedule for things and just go for it.
Sometimes you have to throw out the slow schedule and bring in the
Yeah.
fast one.
Right.
Well, congratulations, Mo. Thanks for
Thank you
sharing
very
some of your
much.
wisdom here. It's been
Thank
a
you.
pleasure working with you.
Very
Looking
much.
forward to hearing what happens next for you. Keep in
Thank you.
touch. Thanks for listening to the Mechanical PE Exam Prep Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review to help other engineers find the podcast. And if you're looking for a program that will help you pass the PE exam, check out the full access bundle available at mechanicalpeexamprep.com, and feel free to reach out with any questions. I would be honored to be your guide on the journey to becoming a professional engineer.